Hey Mia, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Not bad. Welcome to this week's episode of the 9 to 5 Mac Happy Hour podcast. Let's kick it off this week with some super exciting rumors about a premium MacBook Air from our former colleague Mark Gurman at Bloomberg News. I don't know about you, Mayo, but this one really interests me, and I'm a person who just bought the M1 MacBook Air, in the last few months.
You
And
ready to
again,
upgrade?
this is the best Mac that Apple makes right now for me. Um,
Yeah, I mean, just before
but
we go
uh-huh.
into the rumor, we've done this like every other week. I feel like, but you're still super happy with the M1
Mhm.
MacBook Air.
Yes, I am. It's the speed and it's the battery life and just how instantaneous it feels that keeps me happy. The battery life is one of those things where I was like, whoa, if that's real. That's going to be amazing. And I've never done like, how many hours does it actually last, but I have done just on my own, feeling of, am I
Yeah,
having to charge too much? And I'm not, so it's,
that's so
it's,
good.
it's, it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
I
Yes.
can't wait to join the bandwagon. In
And as we mentioned in the past couple of shows, the SD card slot not being there, that's something I wanted for the longest time since 2015, 2016. Because my camera has USB-C and two SD cards, I just plug in with USB-C and it charges it and I transfer the photos that way. And I
so
don't
you
know
so
that.
you've sidestepped that completely.
Yeah, I don't care about SD anymore. I would rather have a USB-A port than a USB than an SD card slot.
Yeah, I can't wait to join the M series bandwagon in Q2, Q3, or Q4 of this year, depending on which rumor you read, because that's when the new MacBook Pros are coming out.
That's right. Let's talk about this MacBook Air though, because we have talked about the MacBook Pro updates
Mm-hmm.
rumored over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so what the last
Mhm.
couple of weeks it was MacBook Pro, iMac, Mac Pro, basically. That's what has been flooding out.
Yep. And this week it's MacBook Air, and it's not just what is Apple going to do with the next version of the current MacBook Air within one chip. It's what is the redesigned MacBook Air, and it sounds like it's really compelling in that the MacBook Air got a redesign in what 2018.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first time I got the different design from the non-Retina MacBook Air before it, which was dated. I mean, it was the old keyboard, the old reliable keyboard. It eventually got the bad keyboard, and then it got the good keyboard, but it did look old though, and it didn't look modern. The newer version, I'm not sure about the thinness and weight of it, but it at least is more compact, right? Like it's a smaller footprint, I believe, than what it replaced.
The 2018 one, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they made it smaller and stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, you still open it up and it looks like the biggest thing they probably did because the old MacBook Airs had the like plastic
This
metal bezels.
it's
Yeah,
silver around the screen.
yeah, they had silver around the screen, whereas they moved it to all glass. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of glass there. Like the bezels are pretty thick. Like they didn't actually make
Yeah,
the bezels smaller, as they love to tell you in the 2018 event. The camera is right where you expect it to be, right in the top middle, and it's nice and big and in your face. So,
right. Which was like a response to Dell doing a webcam on the keyboard or
yeah,
something.
and in 2018, adding Retina to the MacBook Air was also a late industry-wise, right? There were so many rumors that they wanted to do it sooner than that, but Intel CPUs at the time just couldn't support it. There was
Well,
delays and
the
delays.
12-inch MacBook did it
Yeah,
with no fan. It was just not fast, and so it wasn't like they couldn't do it. It just had they had
some stuff happened that made
it
it
wasn't the
take
strategy
forever.
before.
Yeah.
But this new thing, I mean, the rumors are that it's going to be higher end. Which what does that mean? It at least means thinner and lighter, and that it's when you think of MacBook Air, it's the ultra portable MacBook. As the Pro gets thinner and lighter, then so should the Air, and they've kind of gotten pretty close now, where the difference in terms of the Air is a wedge shape, so where it's the thickest point in the back is kind of like the uniform thickness of a Pro machine, and so it is thin and light, but it's not ultra thin and light compared to even like the super thin and light MacBook Pros these days. But this sounds like it's going to be the next leap in terms of how actually thin and light it is. Um, that's interesting.
Yeah, at least in terms of screen bezel, that's what like specifically Mutt calls out here. He
Yeah,
describes it as a higher end MacBook Air model that's
yeah.
coming later this year or in like early 2022. And basically, it would be even thinner and lighter design with slimmed down screen bezels. And also, it's going to get the stuff that's rumored for the MacBook Pro, like the MagSafe connectors coming back
Mhm.
supposedly. And it's going to have the next generation chip in it. So obviously, it launched with the M1 chip. Supposedly, there'll be a M2 coming around in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
It'll probably be different to the chip used in the MacBook Pro line, just because of the different requirements of heat and weight and battery and stuff, right? But the next version along the M1 will then be in this higher end model.
Yeah, yeah. This is quite compelling. I mean, if the MagSafe thing is interesting, I think when that comes out, we'll have to rejudge what is new MagSafe like, and in terms of flexibility of charging and everything. Because I think for us, we're kind of over MagSafe at this point. We really like USB-C charging. So it just depends on how that goes. But yeah, having a thinner bezel is nice. Mine's in clamshell mode right now, so I'm not looking at the bezel. But when I do look at it, that's the one thing about it that looks older. It's just that the performance is such, is so many light years ahead of what it replaced that I don't care that it's
you don't care, at least for that version.
The current design, yeah.
But the M1 performance and efficiency alone basically meant they could write off the first year round of design changes because people would be too happy with it as it is.
Yeah,
they can't live on that forever. Like when the 2021 MacBook Air comes out, people won't be like, "Oh, the battery life's so amazing." They'll be just like, "Oh yeah, it's like last year's one." So they have to keep iterating in different ways.
Yeah.
But it seems like this is not like, it's like, oh, the MacBook Air just came out and we've already got rumors of the next one. Like, this doesn't seem like it's going to directly replace the current Air. What Gurman basically says in the report, or heavily implies, is that the current Air will continue to be sold.
And there wasn't it Quo who had the supply chain report that the MacBook Air will be more affordable in the next version.
Yes, yeah.
Which I was thinking about that, like, oh, this is how they make the current MacBook Air cheaper, is that they do a higher end one, and even if it's a few $100s more, $300 or $400 more than the current MacBook Air, then the current MacBook Air can be cheaper because it's not the one that's being, doesn't have like the latest stuff in it. It's the same design. It doesn't have as much I/O. It doesn't have the latest screen technology. And so it is just cheaper to make, but it's still very modern. So you keep making it because like this MacBook Air will be great for years.
Yeah, like it was genuinely impressive last year when they did the M1 revisions that they didn't increase the price on anything, and so the MacBook Air M1 is still $999.
Yeah,
and they actually reduced the price of the Mac Mini by $100, right? So, so $999 is a decent price point for a Mac laptop, but we know, like, if you go further back into history, Apple had $899 laptops when they did the 11-inch MacBook Air, for instance. Yeah. So they've shown an interest in having slightly cheaper models still. They could definitely just introduce a higher-end model and keep the current one at $999. But if it's a year on, maybe they drop it by $100. Like, it's already $100 cheaper for education, so they could do it for everybody.
And the MacBook Air has a history of being high, premium in the lineup too. Where if this new thinner, lighter, thinner bezels version is much more expensive than the current MacBook Air. The MacBook Air is not only recently has it been the more affordable model in the lineup compared to Pros, but it's had a history of being the higher end model too. Whenever it does kind of push the envelope in terms of ultra portability.
Yeah, there's a question where the higher end model would fit fully, because if you've got $999 occupied by the current MacBook Air, the 13-inch MacBook Pro is what $1299 starts at. So I guess you just have it start at $1299. Yeah, maybe $1199 or something. Like, if it's $1199, that's still a $200 price difference over the lower end model. So there's enough gap there for them to have a nicer design and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And the 12-inch MacBook, which, if this is thinner and lighter than the current MacBook Air, will basically be encroaching on what the 12-inch MacBook's chassis was, right? Like, yeah. Apart from, and if you make the screen bezels thinner, you're going to get close in like every dimension. When that came out in 2015, that was priced at $1299. So Apple's shown an affinity for that price point in particular, because they sell the 13-inch Air, this 13-inch Pro at it, and maybe they want to try and shove a slightly better MacBook Air in that price point.
That 12-inch had a 512. Oh, no, it was 256.
It was 256.
Yeah, which is the current. Is that where these start now?
Yeah, they're all 256 now.
Yeah. So it'd be a good value. $1299 for the new premium MacBook Air, I think it's just fine.
Yeah, because like when the reviews came out last fall of the the first generation M1 lineup, so many people were like, yeah, the M1 Pro's fine, but just get the Air because it's fanless and it's basically as fast, and it's doesn't have a fan. It's cool. It runs cooler.
Silent.
You can't hear it, and it's smaller, right? So you could see Apple like watching that and seeing the sales and like, all these customers that would have bought the Pro, but they're buying the Air. Well, what if we give them a higher end Air option so we can extract the extra money out of them? And then, like, I'm saying it jokingly, but that's product market fit, right? Like, they're looking
That's
at
fair.
these customers would happily spend more for like, if the M1 Air didn't exist, all the people I'm talking about would have bought the M1 Pro sight unseen, happy as Larry, right? But it was only because the Air existed that they end up leaving money on the table, essentially. So if you pry that extra out of people by offering a slightly higher end option, then you're golden. And for everyone that is price conscious, they can carry on buying the lower end one and be perfectly happy. Like, the performance characteristics of the M1 Air are perfectly fine. They'll happily last another year, another 2 years, another 3 years even. They can just keep on selling it. Like, they
And they
just
will.
get the price and put it down a bit more. At least for the next, like, this fall, they could happily sell the M1 Air baseline, and nothing else is going to come close to it in that same, size class.
Yep. Also, in most reporting over the last couple of weeks is the idea that Apple had considered doing a 15-inch version of the MacBook Air, which I would love. Because here's the thinking on this for me. Because you have, like, the MacBook Pro has been 13, 15, and even 17, and now it's 13 and 16. This year we think it'll be 14 and 16. That's also the heavier machine. So to make it even bigger, footprint wise, to have the bigger display, you put in more battery and everything, and it's just all around heftier. But if you can do the ultra thin package where it's literally thinner and lighter, even if you expand the footprint, it's still thinner and lighter than the same screen size equivalent of a thick Pro. Then that's appealing, because right now you can't say, I want a big screen. I don't care about the things that the 16-inch MacBook Pro offers, even if there's I/O differences. I don't care about the I/O. I just want a bigger screen, but I don't want it to be so chunky and heavy, because the 16-inch is really heavy. Like, it's not really heavy, but it's not light. And if you did an ultra thin version of that, it would be so compelling. In the same way that just like a big version of the iPad would be compelling, because it's not going to be big and heavy. I mean, even the 12.9-inch current model isn't like big and heavy. You could do a 15-inch version of that, and it'd be really compelling, because it isn't like carrying around a small TV. It's carrying around a big tablet. So for a long time, I've been like, man, if they make one of these things, that's going to be my machine, because you get the benefits of portability and screen real estate when you're not attached to a bigger monitor. And they just haven't. And this is the first time Market reported that they considered it. They're not doing it right now. I don't know what that means for the future. Yeah, maybe in the future. But I think it makes so much sense. In the same way that right now you've got, on the iPhone side, you've got the aluminum body 12 and 12 mini. To go to the Mac screen size, it's the steel frame, and that makes it heavier. It's also heavier because it's bigger, and bigger screen, bigger battery, and everything. And they don't have like an Air version where you get the bigger screen without the weight, the heft to it. So I think that maybe it wouldn't be successful, but I really think that they should pair thinness and lightness with bigger screens, because that can be a goal of the thinness and lightness, is that you get a bigger screen. Like, if you had a 16-inch MacBook that weighed the same as a 13-inch, that was just thicker at the 13-inch, like, that's compelling. So
yeah, like on the Mac line, the things with bigger screens have better performance. That's how it's always been, right? And so, but that also comes with the downsides of heat usage, bigger batteries, heavier. So if you just look at the history of the Mac, anything that's got a big screen on it is thicker than the stuff with smaller screens on it, because that's just how they've decided to do the product line. But if you look at like the iPhone, the Pro Max has the exact same processor as the non-Pro one, or even the base 12, right? Like, you don't have to go on the iPhone side. You don't have to go to the biggest ones to get the best performance. On the iPads too, you get the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, or get the 11-inch, or you could even say get the iPad Air, right? And they're all going to give you the exact same performance profile. Like, you don't have to go to the very biggest one, the biggest form factor, to get the best performance. They just give you a bigger screen for it. So doing the same thing on the Mac, I don't think is illogical by any means. It's just finding the gap, right? Like, I mean, and say if this high-end one is still 13 inches, you then have, like, if you're thinking like a year ahead, you've got the low-end M1 Air, which is 13. You've got the high-end M2 Air, let's say, which is 13. Then you're going to have the 14-inch MacBook Pro, because they're going to, according to all the rumors, the bezel changes on the entry-level MacBook Pro are going to mean that won't occupy the 13-inch slot anymore. That's going to go up to 14. And then the current big MacBook Pro is 16-inch anyway. So, like, it's not like you're even going to be doubling up on 15-inch sizes. It could just be an alternative form factor for people that want something, thin and light, but with a big display attached too.
That's right. Yep. And then the final thing that also isn't happening is the inclusion of Face ID, which is, it's a little bit awkward when you've got it on the iPhone and the iPad, but not on the Mac, when there's not really a reason that you couldn't do it. But okay. But then also 5G. I don't really understand why they consider this but not yet, unless you're just kind of stretching out their product family over the next few cycles, and they say, well, this is going to be the upgrade in year 3. Is that we start doing cellular? Because why not? They've got their own processor inside. They can do the same thing they do on an iPhone or an iPad now, whereas before it would have been more work. They could have done it then too, but they didn't.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
what?
like saying why no 5G on the first version is like saying why no 4G on the last 5 years, right? Like,
Yeah. So why no cellular now? And if you're gonna get like, it frustrates me because the amount of time that I'm doing hotspot on the Mac is plenty, and to do it from the phone, it's fine, But having the experience of having cellular on the iPad, it's so much easier to always have it there. You just open up the lid and it's on. And I would totally pay for that. I'd pay the monthly fee and all that stuff. So I hope it comes. It's frustrating that it's not on the horizon, but there's no reason they can't in the future.
yeah, I mean, like Face ID is an obvious thing for them to do, but for whatever reason, they just prioritized it on their other devices, and it isn't ready to launch on the Mac yet.
Yep. So that's the Mac for this week, for this year, pretty much.
Yeah, we finally ran the gamut of all the products now, so
Yep.
we're just waiting on other rumors to emerge.
Yeah, let's think a new sponsor, Amazon Pharmacy.
Yeah, I mean, we all shop at Amazon, right? Like, it's just so easy, and if you've got Amazon Prime, you just order something and it's at your door in a day or two. But what you might not know is that you can also buy like pills and medications on Amazon as well. And that's how you can try Amazon Pharmacy today. It's really simple. You just sign up ahead of time, and then you can get your prescriptions from your doctor's office sent to Amazon Pharmacy for them to fulfill. They handle it, they get the medication, and they ship it directly to your door. You don't need to wait in line at a physical store anymore. Amazon Pharmacy is available in 45 US states, and it works with most insurance plans nationwide. And the same brilliant one-click shopping experience that you know from the rest of buying stuff at Amazon, Amazon Pharmacy makes it super clear to show you how much your meds will actually cost you, accounting for things like insurance, co-pays, and such. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can save on prescription medication when paying without insurance and get 2-day delivery as well. And once your prescription is with Amazon Pharmacy, it's straightforward to request refills and see your complete history of medication through the website. It's the simplicity of consumer shopping in Amazon brought to the medication industry. It's really that simple. Get medications prescribed by your doctor and delivered by Amazon. Make Amazon your new pharmacy. Again, Amazon Prime members can save on prescription medication when they're not using insurance and get free 2-day delivery. Learn more at amazon.com/happyhourrx. That's amazon.com/happyhourrx. Amazon.com/happyhourrx.
Can I tell you something? I did not know this existed, and I'm now checking it out. And you said 45 states, which means there's 5 who are not in, and I'm good. So if you're curious, check it out. Thanks to Amazon for sponsoring. This is awesome. Let's talk about iOS 14.4 and other software updates that came out this week. This is the update to the iPhone and the iPad. This nothing like major in it. I think some of the bigger changes this week came in the form of like what the Watch got and what the HomePod finally got. That was been announced, but I'll just go through some of the changes here from the release notes. Smaller QR codes can be recognized by camera. So, okay. I don't know what the limits there were before. I've had a situation where I've been like taking a picture of a group at like a dinner or something, and there's a menu with a QR code in the background, and like it prompts you for that. They're really good at picking up QR codes already, so that's nice. An option to classify Bluetooth device types and settings for correct identification of headphone for audio notifications. And the options there are car stereo, headphone, hearing aid, speaker, or other. And I guess the idea is if it's a car stereo and you have an alert, it doesn't, maybe it tones it down or if it's in your headphones compared to like a speaker or something. So it considers that. And then also what isn't.
Yeah,
Well,
the big reason they've added this is obviously with iOS 14,
mhm.
they added the like headphone notifications that
Yeah.
are required in some countries and regions, right? Like in some
Mhm.
countries it's optional, you can turn it off, but in some places, like in Europe, I believe, uh, it's just fixed on. And if you're listening to music too loudly through the headphones, if the iPhone detects that, it forces the volume lower.
Yeah.
But what was happening is many cars identify as Bluetooth headphones in their Bluetooth profile, and so the phone would think you're playing music too loudly in the car when
Yeah.
it would think the car were your actual headphones. So now you can actually override it. So if you have a car that pretends to be headphones, you can
Mhm.
now go in settings and change it to.
Because if you've got two different audio levels, you've got your phone and your car, then the thing that you want to do is turn the phone all the way up and then use the car volume toggle to turn it up and down for the best experience. And in that case, the phone would think you're doing 100% when you might be doing 5%.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yep. And so that's good. I've had experience with the headphone audio level alerts over the last couple of weeks when I've been getting into exercising more regularly again. And it's funny, like I'll have an alert, time to stand, time to go for close your rings, and then I'll go for an exercise, and it'll be like have an alert, turn down the volume, and you hear a little chime, and then it actually turns down the volume for you, and you can, in the US at least, you can turn it back up. But I haven't gone in to see like, can I just turn off that alert or not? Because I understand that the music's playing too loud. It's also effective at helping me exercise. So I'm not a huge fan of that experience right now. But the other thing is a notification for when the camera on your phone isn't verifiable as a new genuine Apple camera in the iPhone 12 family of phones. So this is if you replace your phone's camera, just the part itself. You can be notified of if it's a fake. I guess the flip side is if you don't replace it with the right thing, then your phone knows and will warn you about that.
Yeah, like this caused a bit of controversy
Mhm.
because people think, right to repair, people think you should be able to repair your phones however you want.
Yeah.
And this basically comes in and stops that if you're trying to cheap out on a cheaper camera component at the repair shop versus like the Apple official one.
Hmm.
And now it would be like, oh, the camera doesn't, your camera's not official. You might not get full quality. I can understand why Apple's done this though, because like the algorithms that take photos are intrinsically tied to the actual hardware. So the software knows what, or it expects certain camera modules to be in place that do certain things and have a certain profile of taking a picture, right?
Yeah.
And so if you replace those parts with non-official ones, then you're not guaranteed to have that experience, and you might just end up blaming the phone or blaming Apple rather than actually thinking back in your mind, like, oh, I actually got this replaced. And this is actually what caused the problem. Because as well as people doing it to save money, there's also like scams that go on where
Right.
people
Yeah.
offer really cheap repairs, but if you're just an individual person, you don't really know if this is a genuine part or if it's just a super cheap one. Maybe it doesn't work at all. Like I think there's actually a thing where a repair shop could, because if like the 2x lens,
Mhm.
if it's too dark, it just uses the 1x lens anyway.
Right. Yep.
So a repair shop, there was this story a couple of years ago, was fitting really cheap 2x lenses that were basically all black. So the phone would just carry on using the 1x lens, and they were basically making pure profit on the sale.
Oh gosh.
And the phone would just always be using the 1x lens in those cases, and most people would never even notice or realize what was going on. And so I can see where they've added this. It doesn't, to my knowledge, like stop you from taking photos. It just tells you that it's non-genuine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if it was more obtrusive and like actually just disabled the camera app, then you could probably get more enraged about it.
I agree. Yeah, and also iOS 14.4 has it patches for at least three security flaws that Apple says quote may have been actively exploited,
Which means they have.
which means they have because they're
That's
so
like a nice PR way of not saying our
yeah
phones have been exposed for the last 4 years. No.
yeah they're so conservative on how they say these things. So this is at least all of iOS 14. Does it extend beyond iOS 14?
I believe people are saying there's 0 days going back years. So.
Okay.
The details were the researcher was anonymous, interestingly.
Mhm.
So full details on exactly what the exploit isn't actually yet known.
Gotcha. Yeah, this kind of thing on like a personal level doesn't scare me. It's more on like a theoretical level that there was this hole in, in the software. because the idea is that it's secure and it's not. And we know that software is not perfect. It's just that once it's discovered, sometimes there's a period between disclosure and obviously in this case, you don't know about it until it's fixed. So it is concerning of who else knew about it.
Apple's duty should be, if they become aware of exploits, fix them, right? You can't say Apple's duty is to release software that isn't vulnerable, because that's just impossible, right? But it should be Apple's due diligence and responsibility to fix problems when they're brought to their attention.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've definitely seen cases where stuff has been brought to their attention and they've been lax in getting it fixed in a timely fashion, like the HomeKit thing in 2017 with the camera situation.
Yeah, and in that case, they could break a feature in HomeKit with remote access to fix the exploit, but they didn't want to break the feature for everybody because somebody could figure out the exploit. They didn't like that trade-off, and then they wanted to have the timeline be, we'll figure it out over the next few months, and don't talk about it in the meantime, even though you know about it in your press unless your duty.
Which is pretty crappy of a situation.
Yeah, if you're a researcher, maybe it's a different set of rules. I don't know, but
usually typical research rules are you report it to the company. If after 90 days they haven't fixed it, you just publish it, right? Because that's the pressure. Basically, you get 3 months to fix it. And if not, then they release the information, and that's the trade-off, right? But even with just like the group FaceTime bug from 2 years ago, right? That was more recent, and that was also bad, but it was more trivial, right, in nature. But still, people were reporting it to Apple, and it still took them ages to fix it. And since then, we haven't had any crazy dramas on that scale. So maybe they've got better on their processes and just checking their reporting.
And that required breaking a feature in terms of all of FaceTime audio, right? And walkie-talkie was affected.
Yeah, and after it had become a viral sensation and the entire press got behind it, they finally broke it. But
so in this case, we don't know what was affected, if they could have broken a feature
or when they were told about it, right?
Yeah, we just don't know. So it's hard to critique them because we don't know the process.
Yeah, assuming Apple is perfectly a reasonable company, which there's no reason to doubt them on that. This is a kind of exploit that has fallen within inside the 90-day window, I would expect. So they've tracked it down and they've sorted it out. Yep. Whether it was actually used to steal real information, possible. Like all the things you hear about, like you remember when Jeff Bezos' phone got hacked back in the day, or the attacks on like citizens in foreign countries and stuff, and even like unscrupulous national governments using iPhone exploits to track text message stuff. All those things that fall under these kind of exploits. And so it probably was used for something somewhere, and now Apple's fixed it. So once all the phones update, you're golden. Of course, this is an endless cycle where Apple fixes exploits, and then the hackers and the NSA and whoever else you think is trying to get into your phone looks for new ways to do it. So it's it's an endless cycle, but the cycle has to continue, as in Apple has to fix the problems.
Yep. And then what's not in iOS 14.4 yet is Apple's new privacy dialog, IDFA, which stands for identifier for advertisers.
Yeah.
Heck of an acronym, I guess. But this was announced as part of iOS 14. It got delayed because there's so much pushback about how it will affect apps and businesses.
And Facebook is currently threatening to file a lawsuit over it.
Yeah, Facebook's going bananas over it, which is great. But Apple now says it's going to be these dialogues will now be in the next version of in the next iOS update, which presumably means iOS 14.5, if not like an iOS 14.4.1 kind of situation. I would guess they don't mean iOS 15, right? I mean iOS.
No, I'm pretty sure they mean 14.5.
Yeah. Otherwise they wouldn't talk about it right now, I don't think. And this is the feature where, from the user perspective, I forget where we landed on this, but I think it is pretty heavy-handed in how it's like, do you want this app to track you or not? And the answer, for a normal sane person would be, don't track me, and how it's presented. But it also is kind of how it works, is that you finally have the option to opt out of a way for apps to market to you across apps. Is that kind of how this works?
Yeah, so the dialogue basically says ask app not to track, and then allow it to track, right? They're the two options. And it's the same dialogue equivalent as like location services, right?
Sure.
When they ask for your location. But with location services, Apple has the only way in to get your location, right? Like through the GPS sense and stuff. So that dialogue is the only way to actually get access to the GPS, right? If that dialogue isn't agreed to, you can't get access to GPS. In terms of just general tracking, there are, a whole gamut of ways that an app can collect information, fingerprints, little identifiers that can correlate users together. A good example is like if you log in with Facebook, right? And then you go onto a third-party app that also has a login with Facebook, well, Facebook knows you've used both apps. They can identify you and connect you together, right? Like, you've literally just logged in with the same account in two places. What this dialogue prompts for, it says ask app not to track. And if you say don't allow, it specifically doesn't allow IDFAs. So that's the one like technical thing that it prevents. So the IDFA token is not available unless you get explicit permission when this update comes out. But also, Apple says that if the user says don't track me, then the app is not allowed to track in any way at all. But outside of IDFA tracking, Apple has no like technical way to enforce that. They say that if they find an app that is exploiting a different way to identify you, and you've opted out, then they'll get removed from the App Store. But we know how that goes. But that's the situation: is that it blocks IDFA tracking if you don't allow it, and there's like an honor system basically where the app will not track you in any other way as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what Facebook is freaking out about. And yesterday during Facebook's earnings call, they called Apple, Mark Zuckerberg called Apple one of Facebook's biggest competitors, and basically said that Apple's doing all of this because it helps them for competitive reasons, and they have all the incentive to interfere. So it's heating up. And then today the development was that they're going to sue, right? That's what you had just mentioned, that they want to take this basically to court.
Yeah, and like Apple made a big deal about this being National Privacy Day. They released like a newsroom report about a day in the day in the life of privacy and about how different apps can use your information all day long. And they're fighting their corner, but Facebook is very adamant about this. I think Google said that they're going to comply through their like integrated ad network SDK stuff. They're going to comply with Apple's rules, but they're also working with Apple to improve the ways in which advertisers can still collect information that helps serve relevant advertising, but in a privacy preserving manner. So a bit more on a friendly basis, whereas Facebook's like, yeah, we're just going to sue you and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. And yesterday I kind of posed this question between us that with iOS 14.4 being released now, and we're almost to February, is iOS 14 complete? And the easy answer here is we at least have another update to bring the privacy dialogue.
Bring another dialogue that you have to agree to.
Yeah. But beyond that, are there any iOS 15 rumors around yet? And also, March tends to be when we get a big drop of what's coming for like May, June. So my question is, what do we know about that yet?
Basically nothing, right? Like iOS 15 is, rumor-wise, is pretty low on the ground. You're right that around January is when they kind of finalize exactly what they're going to have for this release, because then they just spend the next 4 or 5 months actually making it. Like that was most highlighted in the iOS 12 era, right? Because that January we got the leak of the meeting where Apple had announced that they're going to delay new feature development for this cycle and focus on bug fixes and performance, and that's exactly what happened. And that general calendar of they work on iOS 14 features up until like December, basically, and then from about December all the way through to May is that they just basically all engineering is working on iOS 15 stuff.
Yeah, I think rumor-wise, we could probably look at a lot of the features that we knew and reported that were coming in iOS 14 in the early seeds that didn't make the cut because, pandemic, and probably safely predict that those features will be more mature and shippable for iOS 15. So that can give us kind of a groundwork for what to expect. And some of that stuff includes like, the whole custom wallpaper apps where it integrates with the system. In that there are already this whole category of apps that you go to find images for your wallpaper, but you have to save them to photos and then add that to your wallpaper. So there's this whole integration that we saw in iOS 14 pre-release where that's integrated as like a system thing that apps can integrate with that. And then I'm sure there's a lot more that didn't make the cut, but that will come, that we could base off of those rumors.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's take our second break of the episode and thank Headspace for sponsoring the show.
Cool.
For the new year, why not start a new routine of mindfulness and meditation? Headspace is here to help. Its sessions can reduce stress, improve sleep, and boost your focus and sense of well-being. The Headspace app offers easy-to-access guided meditations. And they're one of the only meditation apps that are advancing the field of mindfulness with clinically validated research. Headspace is backed by 25 published studies on its benefits, with more than 600,000 five-star reviews and 60 million downloads to date. It has workout sessions and relaxation sessions for every situation, and it really can help you feel better. Feeling overwhelmed? There's a 3-minute SOS meditation for you. You need some help falling asleep? Try out specific wind down and relaxation sessions. And if you're a parent with kids, you can even choose meditations that are designed to get the whole family involved. I signed up on their website and they do a really nice job of guiding you into the world of meditation. It's nicely designed and super easy to get started. When you make an account, they ask you if you're new to the whole scene of meditation. And if you are, it just starts you off with some basic starter packs that aren't too long, so you can just kind of get in and relax. And once you have an account, of course, you can use Headspace on iPhone, Android, and on the website. Headspace makes it easy for you to build a life-changing meditation practice anytime, anywhere. You deserve to feel happier. Headspace is meditation made simple to help you do that. Go to headspace.com/Mac. That's headspace.com/Mac for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. It's the best deal offered right now. So go to headspace.com/Mac today for a free 1-month trial.
Thank you, Headspace, for sponsoring Happy Hour. Let's talk about WatchOS 7.3 real quick. So we got the update is out. It has the new Unity watch face that we talked about in the podcast last week. So it's now available for everybody. You can update and put it on your watch. And there's also this new Apple Watch Unity collection, which is this space gray aluminum Apple Watch, but with like Unity on the
with
back.
The words Unity
on the back.
on the back.
Yeah,
like, they made a big deal out of being a special edition Apple Watch, but the casing's identical to the space gray one.
Yeah, in the same way that they did the Nike Lab version several years ago. I think it was a Series 2 at the time, and it was a space gray aluminum watch that had Nike Lab in the back, and it came with a special band color. In this case, you can buy I guess the band comes with it, or you can buy it. You can buy it separately, right? Mm-hmm. They're selling it on its own. Yeah. So that's neat though, and we talked a lot about last week about what that is. I'm also
it matches with the Unity watch face, obviously, that we discussed before.
It looks cool. We also get the time to walk for Apple Fitness Plus feature, and it's what we discussed before. Now it's widely available. I had an experience with this. I know, Mayo, you tried it out as well. So I'll give you my impressions really quickly. I tested it for the sake of testing it last night, and I found it enjoyable. There were some things that I was curious. I was really curious about, like the implementation, how it works versus like what it is, because we know it's an artist of some type telling you a story, in a recorded, audio clip integrated with music in between. And it's only on the Apple Watch. It's tied to Fitness Plus, so you need to be a Fitness Plus subscriber to have access to it. They did 4 at launch, I believe. There are different durations, and they're going to have new ones every Monday through April, I believe, is what we're seeing. And they're neat. My first experience was, I need to download this before I go out there, and I wasn't sure if it meant on the watch itself or if I could download over cellular when the phone was with me as well. And I think that worked out just fine. Like I could leave and go do it. I just couldn't start it without it being finished downloading, and it kind of took a few minutes, a little bit longer than I wanted to. Once I started the walk exercise, then I began tracking the workout. I found that the way that it integrates photos, it gives you a tap on the wrist, so you know to look at your watch, and then it shows you a photo that they're referencing in the story. That was a nice touch. And then, by the way, like photos, full bleed photos look really good on the Series 4 and later, because it's a full screen experience. Yeah. On an older watch, it wouldn't look that nice, but on the new ones, it looks really good. And then, it was a really cool experience. The thing that
which person did you do?
Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton, yeah. Just because she of the people, she's someone who I was familiar with the most.
Sure, yeah.
That was nice. That the downloading it thing, if it's already there, that's way easier. But if you have to download it, then you've got to wait a little bit before you can actually begin the workout. but it was good that it worked you could download from, with the iPhone cellular, because my watch doesn't have an active connection right now. And but the other thing is I finished the duration of the story, and I was curious. Well, now I want to keep listening to music on this exercise. And so what I thought might happen is you've got to, in the time to walk workout, to pick your next music, if it would take over. But it worked out fine. I just went on the watch and changed the source, or I went to the music app and picked some more music to play. It still showed on the now playing screen in the workout app, the Dolly Parton story, not the music that was actually playing. And the workout was still time to walk. But it was nice that it doesn't make you stop and start a new workout, even though it ends. So, and you can still play, music or a podcast or something else. So I found that nice. I think, I'll let you say what your experience was like as well. And it's just a moment, but I think for both of us, it's that this is a neat feature, but we did it to test it, not in the future. It needs to be someone that we specifically find interest in to do this, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I did the Shawn Mendes one just because it's like pop celebrity, I guess.
I thought he was a snowboarder when you told me.
And I enjoyed it. Like, they give you a nice, just chillaxing little, I don't know what Dolly Parton talked about specifically, but Mendes was more about like, healthy well-being, mental wellness, and, work-life balance. He was just, some stuff about that. It was nice to do on like it passed the time. I was expecting a half an hour work. The Mendes one came in at 28 minutes. So for the last 2 minutes, I just kind of wandered around in silence, which is a bit awkward.
You could have played music instead.
Yeah, because what they do is I think they give you like it's like 16 minutes or like 15 minutes roughly of them just talking to you, and then they end with them picking like 3 or 4 songs basically if they're in anything, and they introduce them between each one. So Mendes was like describing his songs and what he was doing when he did Senorita, etc., etc. And it was a good experience. The photos thing where they tap you was good, but I did find that like you get the little taps when you do a mile or you do a kilometer. Well, I was like, oh, a photo, but then I looked at a watch and it was just, you've done 1 kilometer, because the taps feel the same for the photos and the the time goal things, the time goal alerts. So that was a bit annoying, but it was fine. I do kind of wish you could like look back at the photos after you finished or something, rather than just being, because as soon as they're on the screen for about 10 seconds and they go, and then they're just kind of lost to time. And so maybe if you like went to see the workout in the iPhone app at the end, it would show you the associated photos as well, something like that.
That'd be cool.
Just to keep the experience going. But in general, I thought it was good. I did it like you, just to make sure we could test it out and talk about it for this show. But I wouldn't rush to do another one unless it was like a celebrity that I was like liking or had an affinity to of some description. I wouldn't go and do the Draymond Green one, for instance, just because he's a basketball player or whatever, because I don't really know who he is. But
yeah, he's not a
maybe he's not a basketball player and just messed it up and just shown
how
much I don't know who he is.
I believe he is. I believe.
Okay, but yeah, like it's a cool feature. And it's nice for them to add some more value to like the Fitness Plus experience, right? And if Apple wasn't all in on subscriptions, maybe Time to Walk would be the kind of thing they just did for free, and it was just like a little perk of the workout app, right? Like kind of like it back in the day, they had the little lessons you do in GarageBand. It kind of feels on that kind of scope. But now, obviously, they're all in on services, so it's part of Fitness Plus. But I get Fitness Plus through Apple One, so there you go. And
me too. And I like that it's the Fitness Plus is you use the watch, but it's all on the phone or the TV or the iPad. It's finally a part of Fitness Plus that's only with is the watch, and it's creative. This is not quite what I would have predicted. We talked about before. There should be Fitness Plus features where it's run coaching, and you could run to this. You would.
It's a bit slow, like when you press Time to Walk, it starts a walk specific workout in the first place, and you can tell their pace of talking is because the celebrities are walking around as well at the same time, so it's like chill. It's more chill. They should definitely do Time to Run in the future, where they just have. I
think that the running one should be more like what you see with Nike Running Club,
goal centric.
Goal centric.
Like 30, 5 kilometers left. Here's some music. Here's some playlists and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I found it to be neat, and I'm super curious about who the next round of artists will be. If it's 4 every week, then there could potentially be some that I care about, not just out of curiosity, but because of who the person is. So $10 cool. We got ECG in more countries with the Series 4 later. Japan, is it Mayat? I don't know that country. The Philippines and Thailand. irregular heart rate rhythm notifications in Japan, the same countries, and that's all nice stuff. One thing I had with the Time to Walk feature was I'm listening to one show on Apple Music Radio. It's on the Apple Music Hit station, which is After School Radio with Mark Hoppus, who's the bass player from Blink-182, and I've listened to every episode of that since they started doing it last year, and it's given me the idea that if Apple had a feature, and the same thing with Time to Walk, where you integrate talking and conversation with music through Apple Music, that if Apple had a feature where anyone can create what's like a podcast, basically, a radio show of some type, where you do the talking, you program a playlist, and if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you can listen to it. Then that'd be a cool social feature, because I would totally do that. The problem is that it's not easy to do a show like that without the licensing.
Yeah, music licensing is what
so I can make it, but I couldn't share it. And so if Apple did that and made it a part of Apple Music Radio, you have your own radio show, basically. That would be really neat. I would totally do that. And this feature, in the way that it integrates not just music but also photos on the watch, even, I thought that was really neat. So maybe they'll take that's my request, is they take all these different pieces that they've already got and make it something that anyone creative minded could put together. Then in the HomePod side, we got HomePod software version 14.4, because Apple can't give that a name, even though it's Audio OS or something like that. tvOS, a branch of now. But the big thing here is that we finally got the handoff feature from iPhone to HomePod Mini, when your iPhone has an ultra wideband chip inside, and then the HomePod Mini obviously has that. And you've got a HomePod Mini in the family, right? Have you been able to try this out?
Yeah, I tried this out. It's pretty cool. Functionality wise, it's the same as normal handoff, right? Like you come close to the speaker, the music goes in one direction. If the music's playing on the HomePod, you just bring your phone closer and the music goes back to your phone. And it works, I'd say, about the same terms instead of like speed and reliability. It's just you get a nicer experience with the animations and the effects. So vibration, yeah. As your phone comes closer, the phone starts like jiggling a little bit, like it can sense the distance away of the HomePod Mini, so you feel a little vibration. And on the screen, there's a little banner that says, like, come closer for HomePod Mini handoff. And you can tell that the U1 chip is driving the thing, because it has really precise distance. Because you come like a centimeter closer, the bubble gets a little bit bigger. You come like 2 centimeters closer, it gets a little bit bigger still. So it's basically just giving you a nicer experience for the handoff thing that's existed since 3 years now. But it's nice to see. And
I do think it's a little bit awkward that we know why, but that the more expensive HomePod doesn't have this nicer feature than what the Mini has, and it's just because the Mini came out more recently than the big one. But I think it's notable enough that hopefully there's a big HomePod revision too that integrates this chip in
at some point.
What we didn't see software release wise yet is macOS Big Sur 11.2. When I was preparing the podcast, we had version 1 and 2 of the release candidate out. Warren in the chat says that there's now release candidate 3 as of today. So we're getting closer to that release. My joke is just that I guess they're waiting for all those new Bloomberg rumored MacBooks to release this thing. I don't know. I mean, some of the fixes in this thing are that
there's no new features in it, right? It's
just bug fixes. They've got a fix for iCloud Drive, and the globe key that shows emoji. Sometimes it might not do that, which I've experienced that. So there's a fix for that. External displays with the Mac Mini, and then something to do with ProRAW photos. They might not save on. It's very specific features. And I think overall Bluetooth reliability is improved, which I believe I've experienced. I definitely had interference with
that seems to be like the leading problem for M1 owners is not for everybody, but for a decent chunk of people, they have Bluetooth issues where accessories disconnect, or they're just laggy. Like if you use a Bluetooth trackpad, it doesn't follow the mouse very well.
I've had my Magic trackpad and Magic keyboard both disconnect, and where I had to toggle them on and off for a bit, and then Bluetooth on the Mac for a bit to get them to reconnect. And it seems to be especially tied to if the AirPods Max are nearby, and that there just seems to be interference there. I've also had an issue in the last couple of days with the AirPods Max where I use them every single day and on different devices, and sometimes they just don't. They're green. They're powered on. I can see them like paired, but they don't make sound. And I've seen some times where it says you've got to put them in both your ears, and so it thinks that one isn't on, I guess. And then the fix is to like hold on the buttons for a while until it kind of reboots. So, this is where an on-off switch might work out well. But it may, hopefully there's firmware updates to resolve that kind of thing. They're only $550. So what do you expect? Yeah. And that's the software update. We've got, maybe next week the Mac version comes out, but it's just a big bug fix update anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right. Our third sponsor of the show is TextExpander. Thanks to our friends at Smart Software for sponsoring Happy Hour. Take your time back with the power of TextExpander. Repetitive typing, little mistakes, searching for answers. They're taking precious time away from you and your team. And with TextExpander, you can get your time back. Turn the things you type into reusable snippets that can be used again and again and again. Get ahead of your productivity this year by taking advantage of TextExpander. Remove the repetition out of your work so you can focus on what matters most. Save time and be consistent. TextExpander makes it easy to give your team the right words for every situation, and they can get it right every single time. Whether you need to keep legal happy or just delight customers with effective answers, you can rest easy in the knowledge that your team has got it covered. With TextExpander, you keep your team accurate and current with all changes and latest messaging for your business and brand. You just share your text and image snippets with your entire staff to keep them on track. And of course, you can use TextExpander's powerful shortcuts and abbreviations to streamline and speed up everything that you type. Create a powerful snippet once, then you just use the assigned abbreviation to let TextExpander do the rest of the job for you every time you need it. No more repetitive typing, no chance for human error. And TextExpander works everywhere that you can type in, like Slack, Google Docs, Trello, email, web browsers, the lot. And you can use TextExpander on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad. So get started today. Unlock your productivity with TextExpander. Listeners to this show can get 20% off their first year subscription. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more and sign up. That's textexpander.com/podcast.
Cool. So a few more things this week. We've got Dan Riccio, who is kind of the hardware lead at Apple. Apple put out a press release this week to say that he is moving out of the role of
he's moving around
vice president of hardware at large to work on a new project. And this wasn't. I mean, this seemed pretty clear to me that it's Apple's way of saying we're doing something new that we're not announcing yet, and we're putting Dan in charge of hardware on that specific thing. In the same way that whenever they hired who's the former Flash guy from Adobe.
Kevin Lynch.
Yeah, when he was in charge of special projects or something like that, or VP of technology, and it was to be the Apple Watch guy basically at the time.
Yeah.
This is very similar where they want to create hype for a new product. We don't know what it is yet, but we've certainly got our ideas. And Dan Riccio will no longer be working day to day on hardware that we know about. He'll now be working on something that's probably a new category for Apple. Is in not the iPhone 13, that kind of thing, but something that they don't do yet. And then John Turnus, who we've seen over the last few years since like the Mac Mini and that kind of thing, he's now coming
I think
to
we
take
first
over
saw
for
him on
Dan.
stage when they did the iMac Pro, which was 2017. So
Yeah. That was a very aggressive year in terms of what they showed off. And he had a very good introduction then. So now he's going to be taking over for Dan, which could mean that when Dan's through with this new project that he's then retiring. But for now, I don't think it signals at all that he's done. I think it's just that he's the new person in charge of this project. Now, as to what that is, maybe the Apple Car, maybe Apple Glasses, something like that. But those are the kind of things that we've seen management turnover, at least for the car in the press. We've learned about people retiring and coming back and that kind of thing. But this at least puts him in charge of that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a report soon that says specifically what he's in charge of, because it's
I'm sure Gerben's
not a secret.
Like digging into it now.
Yeah.
Like, because Doug Field, who is the ex-Tesla executive, he's kind of reported to be in charge of the Apple Car project now that they are back on track making an actual car at some point in the next decade or whatever. So maybe Riccio's focusing on the glasses and specifically not the like weird headset thing we talked about last week that's coming out soon, but like the end goal product, which is the super slim glasses that you can just put on your face and you get an entire augmented reality experience in front of you. That's going to require a lot of complicated engineering, software, hardware, and services all coming into one. And what you're probably seeing by the fact, because obviously, Riccio's been in charge of that stuff de facto up to now, right? Because he's in charge of hardware engineering. But I think what you're probably seeing is like Turnus is taking over the day-to-day responsibilities of everything else, so Riccio can kind of chill out and just concentrate on this new special project and get it up and running off the ground. And then when that finally ships in 3 or 4 years, maybe then he can start just stepping back in general and actually retiring. The old head of hardware engineering was Bob Mansfield.
Big
and
Bob
as we
Mansfield,
know, he retired and unretired about 4 times before he actually left.
Well, there was conflict, and
then he left, and then he came back, and then he left again. Then he worked on the Apple Watch for a bit, then he left again, and he announced his retirement in like 2011, and he finally left in like 2015. So it takes a while, but this is probably what they're going to try and do here with a slightly smoother, more official transition of just like give Riccio the pure focus of this new venture that they're obviously really excited about, and also elevate Turnus higher up into the executive roles. And I think everything we've seen of Turnus on stage has come across really well. He was also part of the Mac Roundtable in 2017, and I'm very impressed whenever he's talking about stuff, or he comes across very well, and he's good stage presence. And I think even Gurman had a Bloomberg report at the end of last year, which was talking about just like general executive leadership of Apple. And he said that John Turnus is a potential future CEO.
Cool.
Considered internally to be one of the candidates for a future CEO role, maybe after Jeff Williams, or if Jeff Williams doesn't want it. So they're certainly getting him. He's becoming an SVP now.
He's certainly younger than the rest of the lineup. Because when you see that the people who are in line to replace Tim Cook are like Tim Cook's age, it doesn't make as much sense as someone much younger. So this is good to see. And I really do think that the way that press release was largely intended to signal that we're doing something unannounced, that we haven't announced it yet, but we're serious about this new thing. I mean, to say
the new thing we are doing, we're actually doing it for real. Like all those rumors of just messing about or experimenting or R&D. Now we're actually doing it.
Right. So, what you won't see is Dan Riccio retire and nothing ever come of it. Right. That would be a shock. I think at this point they're comfortable in building the hype now in the same way that they did with the watch for years. The wrist is an interesting place, is what Tim Cook used to say all the time, and AR is the big thing that he likes to talk about.
Like if Riccio was going for direct like retirement, they'd just labeled him a fellow like they did with Phil Schiller,
sure,
right? And they'd have given him some responsibilities, and maybe they said he's overseeing a special project, but he's now a fellow. But the fact they haven't given him a label like that basically means he's still going to be working on something, basically full time.
Yep. And let's take a couple of minutes to talk about Apple's earnings quarter this year. It's a little bit different because they've got all of the iPhones, or they usually have launch iPhones in the last couple of weeks or week of
September,
of the pre-holiday quarter. This year, all of the iPhones were in the holiday quarter, and so that favored this year-over-year comparison this year. Next year, presumably that won't be in their favor, but either way, they broke $100 billion in revenue for the first time.
And not just a little bit, by 10 billion.
Yeah, I mean
111 billion.
Yeah. So that's major. They now report 1 billion active iPhones. So their active install base for iPhones around the world is now 1 billion. I think their total was it like
1.65, I think.
Yeah, which is up from 1.5 a year ago. So and that's important because they used to tell you how many iPhones they sold per quarter and devices in general. They stopped doing that because they said we could obviously sell more, we just can't make more, or different factors that are out of their control. There's some fairness to that. In this case, they even said that if it weren't for the pandemic and retail stores being closed, they could have sold more than they did this quarter. But what we do know is that it's measurable and important that to see their active install base, because so much of their business now are the services that people pay for. And you can have an iPhone from 5 years ago, and because you're able to still be an active customer, give them money for some service, then you're still of value to the company, and so that's important to note. In terms of their quarter in general, though, they had a good one.
Yeah, I mean, as they don't release numbers unit sale numbers anymore.
Yeah.
Basically, you get is revenue top line and then revenue per division.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was, and yeah, the iPhone sales definitely helped push this, higher. But if you look per division, wearables was 30% up, services 30% up, iPad was 25% up. Mac was I think like 15% up. Like they're doing, they're doing well on all fronts in this crazy time that they're still managed to exceed. I think one of the thing they had a financial target, like obviously they've been focusing on services a lot, but in 2016 they had a target to double services revenue, right? And then when they reached that, they then set a new target to hit 600 million subscriptions, or 500 million subscriptions last year, and they hit that, and they said they were going to beat it. And so they announced that they have now 620 million active subscriptions. So that's why they love touting the user base number.
Yeah.
Because of those 1.65 billion people, you can sell subscriptions to hopefully every single one of them.
Right.
And 625 million subscriptions does not mean 1/3 of the user base, because like one person can have more than one subscription.
Yeah.
Right. And 625 million subscriptions includes all App Store subscriptions. So whatever you subscribe to on the App Store, each single one of those counts as one subscription. It's not just like
Apple services.
Right? I wish they would release that number, but they don't. Like,
but it's also true that Apple gets a cut of all of the stuff that goes through the App Store, so it's their revenue.
Yeah. So anything that goes through in-app purchase as a subscription counts towards that big number, and they don't disclose more fine-grained details like how many of those are specifically Apple services like Music or TV Plus and stuff. They said they're doing well and they're growing, but I think if outside of Apple Music and like iCloud and stuff, if the new content services like TV Plus, Arcade, and Fitness and News were really going gangbusters, they'd have told us something, right? Yeah. They might have said in total we've now got more than 100 million or we've got more than 50 million, right? Like,
yeah.
I think they're doing fine, but it's just like slow going, right? And
hopefully they tout numbers on Apple One at least in the future, because that's something where it doesn't drill down into the specific services, which can be tricky, but at least at large, and just say how many. And because they've got 3 different tiers there, that isn't telling too much information either.
Yeah, like
the lowest tier.
When the thing is, when they have good quarters like this, they have no incentive to release more fine-grained numbers, because everyone's just like, yeah, they're doing great, so investors don't care. But when stuff starts slowing down, like in the 2017, 2018 timeframe, then they're more inclined to release more information because they want to prove to the investor community that their business is still underlying and strong. And so we have to wait a little while for maybe some of because at the moment service is still delivering 20-25% growth every single quarter, right? Quarter over quarter. When that growth rate starts to fall off, I predict then you'll start seeing them release more specific numbers on things, so they want to show people like, no, this is a business that's firmly set in the ground and can continue to succeed for the future.
Yeah, and also what contributes some to this quarter is that Apple signaled is having 5G in the phones for the first time. That's as expected a big upgrade. Feature for users,
especially in China.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if we can't quite pinpoint why. What difference it makes?
Like I think Apple's China revenue is up like 50% year over year compared.
Yeah.
So crazy high. And Cook was quizzed about this on the call, and he said specifically that the 5G network is well established in China versus the rest of the world. So they're definitely indicating that whether once you actually get the phone, you actually use 5G for anything practical, it definitely helps sell the phones up front. And maybe and in China, to be fair, it's way more pervasive. So it has
and my tweet in response was like, "What is 5G for?" And yours was just on the iPhones, which is in the data. It's in the data.
It's true. There you go.
Yep. All right.
Yet another quarter, they didn't release any guidance of what's going to happen next
because of uncertainty, of course.
Because of uncertainty, yeah. So at the moment, if you're the Apple financial team, you have a very easy job. You basically tell people like 4 numbers and then say, see you in 3 months. That's right.
All right, that is the Happy Hour podcast for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe if you don't already. You can send us email at happyhour@9to5mac.com and follow us on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at ApolloZach. Benjamin, you're on Twitter at
BZA Mayo.
And we will be back next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.